Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Raising the Curtain, a Bloomington Normal Theater podcast with Ashleigh. Today, I am here with the playwright and director of the upcoming staged reading, The Other America, being produced by Coalescence Theatre Project. How are you both today?
I'm good. Glad to be here and glad to talk about theater.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm
We
very
love
excited to talk about this show.
Amazing. I'm super excited. Why don't we have you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves? Pedro, let's start with you since you're first on my screen.
Okay. So my name is Pedro Eiras. I am from Brazil. I'm in the United States right now in Massachusetts, where I'm getting my MFA. Uh, I am a playwright, a screenwriter, and originally a journalist. Actually, that was my bachelor's degree was in journalism. But for the past 6 or 7 years, I've been kind of focusing more on screenwriting projects in Brazil, and now here in the United States, more in playwriting. And yeah, I guess that's a very summarized version of it. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. So we are doing this over Zoom. Are you here in Illinois or are you still currently out in Massachusetts? Is that what you said?
I'm in Massachusetts right now, in Amherst, in the middle of Massachusetts. Beautiful sunny day here, so yeah, having a great time.
Very cool. I will be in Boston next month, so
Nice.
it's a good time. All right,
Yeah.
Alejandra, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Alejandra. I'm from Mexico and Arizona. And I'm currently attending Illinois State University for my MFA in directing. And I'm in my second year, so I have this year and next year before I graduate. And I love theater and I love directing and telling stories, and that's partially why I'm here.
Perfect. And if memory serves me correctly, did you just get done with Honeybee Baby at ISU?
I did, yes.
Okay, perfect. I wanted to make sure I had the names lined up correctly.
Yes.
So, all right, perfect. Alejandra, we'll stay with you for a second. Kind of, how did you find your way into theater?
Um, I actually started doing theater since like middle school when I was living in Arizona. I didn't do it like super seriously until high school.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't talk about my high school experience because I feel like there's better eras to bring attention to. But then after I graduated high school, I went to community college where I really met some amazing teachers that kind of let me know that there was a future for me doing theater if I wanted it. I just was able to kind of follow my path to where I'm at right now because of it.
Perfect. Pedro, let me pose the same question to you. How did you kind of find your way into the theater world?
That's a great question, and I'll try to be quick. But the thing is, I started theater when I was a teenager. I was very shy and introverted, and I wanted to take theater classes just as a way to kind of come out of my shell a little bit. And then I didn't do any kind of theater for many, many, many years. So I studied journalism, I worked as a journalist, and I started doing screenwriting. And then in the pandemic, I was trying to figure out like, what should I do next? I had taken classes in theater when I did my first master's here in the United States, here at UMass Amherst back in 2011, 2012. And I loved those classes. So I'm like, let's see what's going on in the theater department at UMass. And they have a great dramaturgy program.
Hmm.
And I applied. I had some experience with theater, but most of my experience was journalism and screenwriting. And what I found fascinating was how much dramaturgy kind of connects with those two fields as well.
Absolutely.
And so I applied and came here, and then over the past 3 years, really have been like focusing more on theater. So yeah, it took a while and it took many, many roads, but it finally led me into the theater world.
Perfect. Well, we love when people find their way over here, right? Um,
Yes.
so can you tell us a little bit about the show? Brief synopsis, just what can we expect?
So this is the story of João da Silva, who is a Brazilian person who, decides to leave Brazil and come to the United States. And it's set a little bit in the future, but not super in the future. And it
Mhm.
deals with, the COVID crisis, climate change, all of these crises, that kind of political crisis that combined make people take these dangerous, complicated, complex journeys of immigration. And so it's his story and his story coming to the United States and crossing the border and everything that happens uh, in his attempts to do that, and a little bit of examining this idea of the American dream. What does it really mean, specifically for undocumented immigrants? And that was kind of the story I was trying to tell, or I wanted to tell with this. So it's
Mhm.
getting this character, João da Silva, who is, just a Brazilian guy in his late 20s, and see understand what motivates someone to take this very dangerous journey and what that journey actually is like.
Perfect. So Don Chandro, he sent me a little bit of information. Is it just a one-man show?
It is. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a monologue, one character throughout. There are moments when other characters come in, but it's the same performer doing all of it. Yeah.
Amazing. So is it like a 10-minute, a one act? What's kind of the time frame I guess we're looking at for it?
I don't know, Alejandra, because when we did it at UMass, it was 1 hour, but I've added stuff since then. So I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's gonna be around 1 hour, but I
Mhm.
don't know, because it's very different in written format and when you actually have the
Absolutely.
performer do it. So I don't know, Alejandra, do you have an update on that?
So we are adding an intermission
Oh,
because
lovely.
our actor yes.
Yeah, there you
And our
go.
first
Yeah.
it is about like 90 minutes
Okay, perfect.
without intermission.
Yeah, it can be long. Yeah, that's what because I've added quite a few stuff since we did it at UMass, and that was 1 hour. So yeah.
Perfect. I know with, one person shows, sometimes they can take 20 minutes, sometimes they take 4 hours. So I mean, we've discovered, at least in this area, the 90-minute show is really drawing people in. So that's going to be perfect for you guys. And that's
Yeah.
actually a great segue. Alejandra, can you kind of tell us a little bit about your experience directing the show, with it being not only a one-man show, but this is also
Mhm.
a staged reading. So if you want to explain
Mhm.
a little bit for people who may not know what a staged reading is, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so a stage reading is kind of self-explanatory, but it's basically having actors on stage do the movements that you would expect from someone seeing like just a play, but they have the script on hand, so they're not memorized, but they're reading off the page.
Mhm.
And so our actor Gustavo, he's reading off the script, but we actually have rehearsed these past 2 days. And we've been kind of just breaking down the script and just finding moments of just breaking down the beats and having different things for him to do because he is telling a story and finding different ways of how to like make people engage in what is happening and really painting the picture of what this character is like describing to everybody.
I know for me as a director, I'm always like, I'm so anxious for people to get the scripts out of their hands. So
Mhm.
what's it like for you when, they don't necessarily have that time to get fully off book if we are keeping it as a staged reading? How do you kind of work around that?
Yeah, I mean it's essentially everything is the same except for the part of like pressuring to get off book.
Right.
Um, but I think with Gustavo, because Gustavo is recently like immigrated from
Yes.
Brazil to the United States. And I know that he is self-conscious about the way that he sounds when he speaks English.
Mhm.
Um, and he, at first, he was kind of like, oh, I don't like, I just want to make sure that people understand me and that people are like interested in what I have to say. And so for me, that is like, as a director, I'm like, okay, so like like, I think the biggest thing is to make sure that he feels comfortable and he feels
Sure.
empowered and he feels proud of the work that he's doing. So something that we've been doing is just like a lot of stop and go and repetition, so he feels more comfortable with the text.
Mhm.
And yesterday, like I saw a full run of the first act, and he was tired because we had been working on it for like 3 hours. Um, and even though he was tired, like like I was still able to see like the character and the story clearly. And he even said like, "Oh wow, like I'm excited for people to see this. And I'm like, okay, we're on track. Like
Good. Yeah, I actually know Gustavo. Me and him went through the same program at ISU. I
Oh,
was a second year
wow.
when he was a first year. So he graduated just the year after I did. So I had a few classes with
Yeah.
him and stuff. So I was really excited to see him on the cast list. So that
Yeah,
was
and he's
fun.
killing it. It's
Yeah,
really
I'm
beautiful. And I know that he was a big champion of this script when it was submitted to I think it's called Diverse Voices. It's like the competition
yeah.
that ISU does. But I remember like before we even got to being like a semifinalist, like he would be talking about that script and how much he loved it and how excited he was about it and how he really wished to see it come into fruition. So I think it is kind of like poetic in a way that he ended up being in it because and I think something that is really exciting is to be able to involve actors that are passionate about what they are saying.
Absolutely.
um and it shows with him.
Yeah. And I feel like Gustavo and Pedro, you have some stuff in common because I know his background is also in like journalism and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So that's
And
very
film.
cool. Yeah. So that's very cool. And the fact that he gets to portray someone so similar to who he is, that's
Hmm.
amazing to see.
I'm
Um,
so excited to see it. I'm so excited to see him
yeah.
perform this because we've done it. I've done two readings of this play before, and we couldn't find a Brazilian performer to do it in
Mhm.
both times. And it's okay, it doesn't need to be a Brazilian person, but the fact that it is a Brazilian person that's recently immigrated, all of these connections are so rich. So I'm really excited to see Gustavo perform this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Pedro, let me ask you, what was kind of your inspiration for the script? Was it a little bit personal? Was it, let me tell kind of a different story. What was your thought process and creative background for that?
Yeah, so I, growing up in the 90s, there were a lot of Brazilian people who immigrated to the United States, particularly to Massachusetts, Boston, Framingham, Worcester, this whole area. And I had a very close friend when I was like 10 or 11 who immigrated here, and we never talked again because this was before Zoom, before any of this. You had to call people on the phone. It was super expensive to call, or you had to send letters over the mail. So I kind of lost touch with him. But I always wonder, like, what would have happened, like, if he had stayed? Like, what does it mean when you move your life to a different country like that, especially at that age? But like in general, what is that? And so when I came here for my MFA, this was also after the Trump presidency. I was thinking a lot about like what it means for undocumented immigrants in particular
Mhm.
to be here in a way where you have to live kind of invisibility. And so your stories don't often get told because to tell them is to place yourself in a position of risk. So I kept thinking about all of these things. And then
Oh,
at the same time, I was taking a class and we were looking at Dario Fo. And one of my favorite plays ever that I watched when I was maybe 14 and changed my life is Dario Fo, Johan Padana, The Discovery of the Americas, which is it's set like in the 1600s, 1700, and it's this guy from Europe who comes to the America and discovers America. And I'm like, that kind of structure kind of talked to me. So that inspired me to then tell a story about somebody doing this kind of journey, but it's set in the near future and it's a different idea of what it is like to come to America. So it's this other America, right? So it was a combination of both like personal experiences of people I knew, this political preoccupation I have about undocumented immigrants, which is always, particularly this year now with the election, is always something that I'm
yes.
thinking about because I know so many people who are undocumented here in the United States and I understand their struggles. And also this, inspiration from this class and reading Dario Fo. So all of those combined kind of made this exist. And then a lot of research. I read a lot of books and I talked to people and I did a lot of research. That's when the journalistic side kind of kicks in and I started
Yeah,
doing so much research. And then that's when the piece kind of came into existence, I guess.
amazing. So I'm going to kind of pose this next question to both of you. Um, Not to get too political, but I'm a big believer in the fact that theater is designed to tell a story, tell a message that people may not be familiar with. So, with this story and the election being so close, what are you hoping audiences take away from this in terms of like, education or how they view undocumented immigrants? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I guess my thought is I want people to understand, and this is both doing research, but also my personal experience, is that people who make these decisions to leave their home country to come to the United States, they are doing that based on very difficult circumstances,
Mhm.
and that they are just trying. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but they are just trying to, get through life and do the best they can and
Yeah.
help their families, or they are escaping violence or trauma or climate disasters, and this is going to keep happening more and more as the world like climate. We're seeing all the time how climate emergencies are creating these forced migrations. So I hope people can look at this character and understand that, behind the name immigrant, undocumented immigrant, or the one that I don't like but is used a lot, illegal immigrant, there
Mhm.
are actual people with families and dreams and hopes and traumas, and that we need to always think about that before we engage in rhetoric that it can be dangerous, focusing on immigrants. Yeah.
Yeah. Alejandra, what about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was actually talking to about this play to my partner yesterday, kind of like explaining the story, and I got really emotional just summarizing it for him and
Yeah,
not spoiling it. Because I'm like, I still want you to know like why he went through all of this.
sure.
To kind of keep him with the element of surprise. But I started getting really choked up because I was born in Mexico and I was raised there until I was 8 years old. And then I moved my mom and I immigrated to Arizona when I was 8. And um I feel like I've been very lucky to experience very different realities, very different worlds, very different cultures like growing up. And that's really like informed just how I see the world and how I see
Yeah.
people. Um, and I think at the end of the day, this story shows us that like our struggles are interconnected and they
Mhm.
may look different depending on what region you are from, what state you are from, but like everybody around the world like gets affected by the powers that be.
Mhm.
And until we address how violent it gets for our most marginalized communities, no matter where we are at in the world, um, including in our own in our own home, in our own vicinity. Like this story is telling that something that is closer to home, but at the end of the day, like it's the same thing, different font.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that is going to prevent, because things are rapidly shifting, like even in our own country right now, there is nothing that is telling us that some of these things won't affect us in a way that looks different, but is still just as violent. And so we got to really be aware about how these things are shifting in our own like interpersonal lives, like as simple as where we go to work, where we go to school, and how are we treating ourselves, but how are we treating each other, and are we discerning, and are we holding ourselves accountable to just be better people in our community, because it's really easy to say like, oh, I'm a good person, but like, are you treating everybody with the same amount of justice and fairness as you should be?
Right.
And if the answer is no, because you might not like this person or whatever, um, that doesn't matter. Everybody in this world deserves dignity and respect and the same amount of everybody's life is worth the same.
Mhm.
And no matter what the argument is, like if we can't start from there, like we gotta unpack that.
Absolutely. I'm getting teary-eyed hearing you talk about it. But Pedro, let me jump back to you really quick because you said something that I think is really important is there is so much more than just this surface level that we think of when we think of undocumented immigrants. My thought process has always been, isn't America supposed to be the place where everyone is supposed to feel welcome to have a better life? And people are coming here for a reason. Granted, I don't claim to be well versed in our immigration or anything like that, but I think looking so much beyond that surface level than what media is showing us or what politicians are talking about. There's the reason behind it, I think, is what's so important. And people just kind of glance over that. And the other thing you mentioned is I never even thought of this was saying undocumented versus illegal and like the connotation of those two words. So that was very insightful.
Yeah, I for a long time used the word illegal immigrant, but it always kind of bothered me a little bit. But then
Yeah,
I never thought about it. And then I think I don't remember now if it was a book or a class, but in some conversation, people were like, there's no way a human being can be illegal. That
right,
doesn't make sense. So I started to use the word undocumented, which is accurate in terms that this person is not here illegally, they are just here. They don't have the papers. But what does that mean, getting the papers? And I hear that a lot. Like, we're not opposed to immigration. We're just opposed to illegal immigration. We want people to do it the right way. And
hmm,
people don't understand just how enormously difficult the process can
yes,
be. And also how a lot of people who come here, they don't have the luxury of waiting or applying through the right channels, or they don't have the resources to do that. And they are escaping some really complicated situations because, and reading and researching this, if you really understand what it's like to cross the border, to walk through those deserts, the dangers, the horrors that happen there, nobody goes through that just because they're interested in, I don't know, buying cheap stuff. Like that
right,
idea, or that they're coming here to steal jobs. Nobody's gonna go through that. They're going through such extreme difficulties because they really don't have a choice. They really need to have opportunities. And so I feel like the moment we switch that mindset from illegal to undocumented, we are also opening up a little bit of the humanity for these characters
hmm,
beyond numbers or beyond being used as political instruments in discourse. So yeah, it took me a while to make that distinction, but once I made it, I'm like, yes, this is how it needs to be said because it's just much more accurate.
yeah, I completely agree with you. You're right. No human being is illegal. Like, and I never thought of it that way. So, wow, I'm
Yeah.
learning all new things today. Oh, amazing. All right. Well, like I said, I didn't want to get too political, but it needs to be said. So I appreciate you both telling us that information and providing your sides of that kind of stuff to try and educate people. Um, this might be kind of a loaded question, or kind of hard to pinpoint, but do you guys have a favorite moment from the script that has really, set with you, or Gustavo's doing a really great job performing it, or you really think audiences are going to enjoy?
I have one, but I don't want to spoil anything.
Fair.
But there is one moment because we start the play with João telling us about these characters
Mhm.
that come back later in the play, and when they come back later in the play, that's always for me a very um, beautiful moment that I really like. And I like the whole part in the airplane. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. There's a whole
Sure.
section in the airplane that can be, and I'm curious to see people have, because the thing about the Other America too is it's dealing with these very tough subjects, and some parts of it can be really heavy, but it's also at times a comedy. At least I want it to be. I hope people will find it funny. And when we did it the last few times, there was this whole section in the airplane that people were laughing so much, and so. I'm also always curious to see where the parts people are going to find the humor in it because since it is a little inspired in Dario Fo, and Dario Fo is very much comedy a lot. So I'm interested in that too and see how in that goes.
Amazing. What about you, Alejandra?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely laughing when I was seeing it yesterday. Um, I don't know, I just there's so many great moments throughout this script that it's kind of hard to pinpoint. Um,
Sure.
but I guess so I don't give away much. I think there's just a lot of moments throughout the script that are mentioned um almost like nonchalantly. Um, but then they come back at the end and then you realize why he said something as specific as he did, but kind of like brush through it. But then it was specific enough that it catches your attention, and then you see the whole play in its entirety, and you realize that um, the truth was kind of there all along of why
Yeah.
he did the journey that he did. Um, And so I do love the whole thing overall because it's just so like I didn't know that you had a journalism degree, but now that you said that, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like, because there's so much like historical context that is so important for people to understand. Um, like part of the reason why I had stayed away from directing plays that deal with like immigration was because I felt like they just focused on the trauma and not like the
Sure.
context of why it happens and why people do the things that they do. And I do feel like this that I really, really do like this play because it does kind of give you a really well dissected information that you can like absorb as you're watching this story unfold to really understand how it all kind of is interconnected and how like yeah, how it how I'm trying not to spoil it,
Sure. No,
but
that's fine. You're
I'm
doing
like
great.
speaking in code.
That's okay. Well, people
Um,
just got to come see it if they want to learn more.
yes, because it is that emotional attachment that you get with his character, but then he educates you, but not in a way that is like preachy or a PowerPoint presentation, but it's like
Mhm.
it's something that is affecting this character's life. So of course he's gonna bring up these historical events that are affecting him now that happened like 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 years ago.
Right. Very cool. So Pedro, one final question for you. How did your script find its way to Bloomington?
So I as a writer, I'm always like submitting my pieces to all, various contests and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And there was a contest. Was it? I don't remember. Was it Indiana? I don't remember the university now. But they did a contest called Diverse Voices Playwriting Contest, and I submitted it to them, and it was a finalist in it or a semi-finalist, and so that's how I think Dawn also got to read it, and the people at Coalescence Theatre, and that's when they were like, "We want you to do a reading of this." Because they liked it when they read it for that contest. So which is a great lesson. I mean, I didn't know this before coming to the US, but there are so many wonderful, wonderful of these like prizes and contests you can send your work
Yes.
to, and they've been very instrumental in my career here as I'm finishing my master's degree in getting to know people. It's really wonderful. So it was one of these contests that got my play to Coalescence Theatre, and I'm so happy it did because I can't wait. And I'm flying out. I've never been west of Massachusetts ever in the United
Oh,
States, so this is going to
wow.
be my first time going a little bit west. So I'm really excited to go to Illinois and to see the play done. So yeah, I'm just thrilled.
Amazing. Well, you're going to be right in the heart of the Midwest. And if I'm
Yes.
biased, I grew up in this area. I think October is probably one of the best months to come here because it's
Nice.
warm
I'm
enough,
excited.
but the leaves are real pretty and it's really nice. Um,
Yes, I'm so excited. Yeah.
Perfect. So I've got my little information sheet up here. So the staged reading is happening at the Illinois Art Station at 101 East Vernon Avenue in Normal. It looks like it's also free. We are not we. Why am I saying we? This is all you. You are performing on October 11th and 12th at 7:30 p.m. Do you know about how many seats for each performance are available?
Um, it's a small space, so it'll be like probably like 45 max.
Okay. So if people want to get there, they need to get there. Um,
Yes.
is there a way to like reserve seats or anything, do you know, or is it just kind of like a first come, first serve?
I'm pretty sure it's like first come, first serve.
Perfect. So we definitely will get this posted early so people can plan accordingly.
Yes.
But yeah, before I let you both go, any final words you want to say about your experiences or the show itself?
I just wanted to say so there are two things that play a role in this story. One is COVID-19 and the other is climate change. There are other things, but those are two major ones.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting is both COVID-19 and climate change, they don't see race, they don't see class, they don't see anything. What lesson it's they affect everyone
Yes.
equally. So they kind of prove the point. To Alejandra was saying, we're all the same. We're all going through struggles, and those two events that are so important for display, they are a reminder in bad ways, like they're tragedies. But what they reminded us was we're all the same, and everything affects us equally. And I really believe that when we're living in community, what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And so it is important to always have that in mind. So I'm really happy this play's been done at this time. It's inescapable talking about the election just because it is such a monumentous thing that's going on.
Yes.
And I feel like this play touches on the issue of what happens to one of us happens to all of us, and we're all kind of connected. And just so I'm really excited. I will be there. So I'm excited to talk to people and see people react. It's always nerve-wracking having people watch your work live, but it's also really exciting. So
Oh,
I can't wait. And thank you. It was great talking today, and I'm just eager to see the play. Yeah.
amazing. What about you, Alejandra? Anything?
Yeah, I guess it's just especially for the community in normal Bloomington, like just I hope that you continue to feed the curiosity of getting to know different points of views, because that ultimately I think is what shapes us to be better human beings, is understanding different contexts outside of our own. And I think this play does a really good job at doing that, but also like educating within those contexts. And there's more works that are written by people of color that explore that. And I hope
Hmm.
that people invest and have curiosity in seeing these works and these stories come to life, because uh, they do teach a lot of things, and we still have a lot to learn. So, and act
Amazing.
upon.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Well, thank you both so much. I greatly appreciate us being able to coordinate some time to get you guys on. I always love interviewing new people, especially new playwrights to the area and new directors to the area. So it's fantastic. So all of our listeners, make sure you go see The Other America being presented by Coalescence Theatre Project at the Illinois Art Station on October 11th and 12th at 7:30 p.m.
Right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much, Ashleigh. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this was fun.